Welcome to the Diary of a Manager, your go-to resource for actionable managing tips, insights on management concepts, and effective ways on how to manage yourself. With your host, Brunello. And now, here's the show. Today, I'm going to share 3 more tips for new managers. Last time, in episode number 3, I shared 3 tips for new managers, and they were more introspective. They were self-reflection, knowing what you or your team's role or your function is, and mentoring. So if you notice, those tips are more introspective because they require you to think and being introspective, examine your skills that you have accomplished so far and being able to extract them and apply them to your new role or mentor them or to share them to your team. Today is going to be the opposite of that because the tips today are going to be more extrospective, if there's such a word, because they relate more to the surroundings. So this is being observant of your surroundings or your environment. First, number 1 is to take notes. Write notes down. This is true when you're starting a new job or a new position, because you don't want to be asking the same question again and again. Just put yourself in the shoes of the person being asked, the same thing 20 times. It's not pleasant. So this goes the same way with as a manager when you hire a new employee. So make sure that you've got provide some notepad for the new employee to use for taking down notes. It's very similar to actually studying at university and listening to a lecture that's not recorded. If the lecture is not recorded, you have to take down notes so that when you go home you have something to review. Nowadays the lectures at most universities are recorded anyway, so you don't need to write down notes, and you just download the video or the audio recording and you use them to review. But the point is, there's something to review, either writing down notes or recorded. You got something to review. Just be careful about the recording bit, because some states or jurisdictions do not allow you to record things unless there's express consent. The notes, just want to make this emphasis that your notes do not need to be perfect. They just need to be in a format or presentation that works best for you. So you might, draw a diagram or, a circle with 3 dots and then put a note saying these 3 dots represent the 3 things that you need to do before Wednesday or something like that. Okay, just use whatever works for you as long as you take notes. Because for example, if you have notes that you've taken in your first session, you can use that to prepare for the next session. So for example, you can recap or review what you have discussed last time so that the person training you knows not to repeat what is already covered in the last session. The same goes with your employee. Ask your employee to recap or review what was discussed last time. This also gives the opportunity to that person to recall and understand what was discussed in the last session and how that relates to the current session, and also help in the maintain the continuity of thought, because it refreshes your memory of the last session, and now you can proceed to the current session. As a newbie, it may not necessarily make sense what's being explained to you. It can take a few sessions before the essence of what you're trying to understand makes sense. For the person explaining, because he or she has been doing it for a while, that person may not necessarily be aware that certain aspects of the process that he or he is trying to explain is a bit complicated for a newbie. But when you have notes, you have something to review later on because you wrote them down. And then eventually, after a few sessions or after a few weeks or a couple of months, then when you start reviewing your notes, you will see, oh, now this makes sense. Now you can connect the dots. When at the time when you're writing down the notes, they don't necessarily make sense at that time, but when you review them later on, a few weeks or a couple of months later on, things will make sense. And then number 2, meet or introduce yourself to ELT members. ELT is Executive Leadership Team, other managers or other team members. Make a good impression that you're a sociable person. Do this on your first week at your new job or a new position, because you don't want to be, doing this on your 6th or 7th month. For example, you always see this person in the kitchen, and then you only introduce yourself after 6 months. You don't want to be you don't want to be doing that. I think the first few weeks, first couple of weeks or first couple of months, just go social. Just introduce yourself to as many people as possible, because you're trying to gather information as well, from outside about the company, about what they say about different departments, and then you can sort of internalize that later on. But at this, first couple of weeks or first few weeks, always information gathering by meeting a lot of people, and then later on you can sort of relate that to the things that you wrote down in step 1, where whether I need to do this process because that relates to the that person in the kitchen that told me about. That relates to the report that I send to finance department, for example, every month. So I think it helps when you trying to talk to as many employees as possible in your first couple of months, because it will help you eventually. And then number 3, know your team. And I mean really know your team. You may have to bring them out to lunch if you have to, because this establishes rapport and start building trust with your team, because you are indicating to them that you actually care. You may not realize it, but for some, taking your team to lunches once a month or every couple of months contributes towards building trust and reduces friction, if there is any. Know your team, look after them, and also be aware that everyone in the team has different pace of learning. Some can learn really fast by just explaining it to them, just explaining things. Some learn by diagrams, some learn by actually doing the process itself. So you need to be mindful of this. Don't compare one team member over another in terms of their learning speed. Your responsibility as a manager is to observe and think about the best approach that you can use that will be useful to that team member. So you will have to do a little bit of customization here. Take time to invest in your team, and that's what your team means. Really know your team. And I think those are the 3 things that I'd like to share to you today. Thank you. My name is Ronaldo, and welcome to the Diary of a Manager.